Welcome back to Grand Tactician Civil War Union Campaign. We're getting here toward the end of 1861, and where we left off the last episode, well, let me just go through and kind of do a quick summary. On the naval front, really nothing new to say there. The blockade for this early stage of the war is starting off pretty decently. That will increase over time with policies and with additional ships. And I don't know if I had shown this in an earlier episode, but we've got the 6 squadrons here at various spots along the larger ports for the Confederacy. And I've also got 6 50-gun frigates building, which are about halfway done now. And each one of these will they will go out one apiece to the 6 blockade sea squadrons, and that should improve blockade effectiveness as well. They have a lot of guns. They do not have, but they're sailing ships, and they do not have armor. So if they were to run up against Confederate ironclads, that could go not so great. However, the hope is that the Confederacy will not build too many ironclads, if any. I don't know if I've ever actually seen the AI build ironclads. Doesn't mean they can't or won't. But they've got blockade power, and adding these large ships, even if they're of an older tech, will help the blockade a lot. Also, in the various battles that have occurred outside these ports, we've kind of captured 4 just little steamers. They're Confederate. I didn't rename them per se. I just changed them from CSS to USS, but they've got their old names. A few more of those, and we'll actually have a few more, enough for another one of those riverine squadrons in the Mississippi-Ohio river system as we continue to collect those up. And then one final comment about the naval side, looking out far ahead, over a year, I think. But I've made a comment before that every time I've ever had a fleet go up against a fort, occasionally intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, but every time I've tried that, whether meaning to or not, the fort just completely wrecks the fleet. I mean, it's almost instant. Boom, you lost a bunch of ships, these other ones are all torn up, and they're headed back to board. The survivors. And that's what I've consistently seen. However, a thought occurred to me that I have never tried sending an ironclad heavy fleet against a fort. And even at this early stage of the game, I think because we started with the industrialization policy at game start, we actually have available already the ability to construct ironclad monitor, which I haven't used a whole lot before. I have built some, but I never really felt they were needed in the naval fights that I have fought, and were also not really needed for blockade purposes when stuff like frigates and other ships can do that job perfectly well also. But I've never tried them against forts. So and I did a quick search in Steam discussions and stuff, and I didn't really see too much discussion of that. But I did see just a couple of, without a lot of information, just kind of passing remarks that, I think I saw somebody say something like a fleet can win against a fort if it will take losses, but if it has enough ironclads, it can win. So I'm going to try that. It takes a long time to build these things, but I'm actually going to, I'm not putting them in a fleet, but I'm just going to build some ironclads, and I'm going to build 8 of them, which is pretty pricey. They're 200 K apiece, which admittedly is there are more expensive ships. But the idea is that even though they have few guns, they've got strong armor, and the 2 guns that they do have are pretty big. They're like 11-inch or something, rifled. So this might be a complete waste of resources, I don't know, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to build 8 ironclads, which will probably take like a year to build or something. Oh, actually not that bad. 131 days. So these could come into... okay. I thought they took longer to build. So we might see them a few episodes from now. And then my idea is maybe I can run them into places like Norfolk, take down the fort. And that's another question I don't know. If it's possible for a fleet to win against a fort, I'm guessing it probably can't outright capture it. It just reduces its condition. That should make it quick and easy for a relatively small land force to take the fort and therefore take the associated city and port. So 131 days, that's a little over 4 months. So as we go into 1862, coming out of the winter, a little bit more commentary on that coming up. I could have a relatively small army that's kind of geared for sieges, you know, something like a 10 or 12,000 man force that's got a fair amount of artillery in it, kind of give it siege perks and things like that. And maybe in conjunction with that monitor fleet, maybe they can kind of bop down the coast here and take Norfolk and Morehead City and Wilmington. And if that I guess experiment would be a good word for it, works out, then maybe a separate ironclad force can help force some of these forts along the Mississippi. You know, there's one here above Memphis. It's not shown, but you know, it's right there. There's a fort there that blocks coming down to Memphis. I think there's probably another one down here in the vicinity of Vicksburg. And the AI does sometimes build forts too. So even if there's not one here now, there could be one in the future. And then finally, that might help out a lot because there's a ton of forts around New Orleans, covering all the approaches, seaward approaches to it. Pensacola, Mobile, and that would be advantageous. You know, that's a pretty big city. 7. New Orleans, 9. I think that's the biggest city in the Confederacy. Historically, it certainly was. And of course, you know, even better than 100% blockade is for the Confederacy simply not to have that port at all. Anyway, that might just kind of crash and burn and not work, but I'm going to try it out. All right, I think that covers the Navy bit. Over here in the Trans-Mississippi, Lyon has finished building these forts, and I have assigned some forces to these and commanders and such. So St. Louis is now pretty well protected against a landward attack coming from this direction. Right now, Lion is going to pop right up here, and just in case, I'm going to put another one kind of right in this crook to cover any attack coming from north of the Missouri River. After that, my plan for Lion is to kind of move down the river and maybe do some fortifying around Cairo. In the west, have got, well, the West Appalachian theaters combined got kind of a ridiculous situation going on in that I recruited an army here in Indiana, which is now manned up and fully ready and operational, and it's not here. Why? Because this 6,000 man force, which began down around Nashville in Tennessee, has led us on a merry chase all the way up through, crossed into Kentucky, and didn't go for Louisville, which is where I had Grant protecting. It kind of went over this way up toward Cincinnati and Covington. I didn't really see any other choice than to have Grant follow him and try to bring him to battle. And of course, the Confederate force retreats and keeps retreating north. So led us on a merry chase through Ohio, actually captured Wheeling, and is continuing to run and is now just outside Pittsburgh. Actually has run through Pittsburgh. I'm chasing him past Pittsburgh now. Which is all a little ludicrous that my Kentucky-Tennessee area army is in Pennsylvania. So I feel a little silly about that, but I'm continuing to chase this guy. Meanwhile, McClellan has taken Charleston, West Virginia. Well, it's still Charleston, Virginia for now, but will be Charleston, West Virginia, hopefully at some point. But because he's in West Virginia, supply is not great. His supply situation is very bad. So he's got some elevated attrition. Condition of the troops is still good, but they're on reduced rations, so condition is going to continue to deteriorate. I thought about just pulling him back, but I don't know how far I need to pull him back. I'm not sure supply is any better up here at Point Pleasant. So I'm just going to have McClellan just kind of tough it out here. Build the supply depot, and hopefully once the supply depot gets built, things improve again, and he'll probably just remain here through the winter. Yeah, we're in October 1861. So we don't have too much campaigning weather left. I think the first week in November, if I remember correctly, is when winter sets in, and the army's pretty much stopped moving. You're not prohibited from moving. You can still campaign and try to pull something like a winter campaign like Burnside did at Fredericksburg. But the movement is very slow. Attrition is increased, desertion increases, readiness falls through the floor pretty quickly. You can kind of move short distances. But a long campaign, especially anything that goes even remotely far away from really well-established supply network, you just lose a lot of troops without even fighting in winter. So basically December, January, February, I don't remember if it opens back up at the beginning of March or the beginning of April, but for 3 or 4 months there, that's basically a time to recruit more troops. That's a good time to build more forts if you want, if you're in an area where you need some. And while the armies are in winter quarters, they're stationary, they do still train. So you can come out of the winter with a better trained force than you went in. Of course, that is true for the enemy as well. So that's what's going on with McClellan here in Charleston. It looks like I don't think, I mean, Polk's army has to be in terrible condition. I mean, he's taken attrition here. It says 7,000, but that's an intel estimate. I'm thinking he's got to be lower than that. But it's infantry chasing infantry. I don't know that I can catch him. I've tried to use force march a couple of times through here. Didn't quite bring him to battle. I made contact, but of course Polk understandably retreats rather than gives battle. But I can't leave him alone up here in Pennsylvania. That'll cause all kinds of havoc with raiding and supply network and stuff like that. So at this point, I'm just kind of hoping I keep chasing him and he runs back down into Virginia. But I hope this gets resolved one way or another, because I'd really like to get the Army of the Ohio back over in this area where they're supposed to be. And then finally, here in the east, near the capitals, I've now got 3 armies, which fairly soon, as soon as that policy is completed, which is still a month and a half away, but once that policy completes, these will eventually become the 3 corps of a combined army. Almost done with these forts guarding the approaches to Washington, and not too far from finishing this fort here at the crossing near Culpeper Courthouse. All the major battles of the war thus far have been right in this area. There have been 4, including, not shown here, but some trench warfare as well. I'd kind of like to get our hold on this area solidified and start moving the campaign in the east further toward Richmond rather than up here near Washington. So kind of what I want to do is, before winter sets in, I want to push the Confederate Army of the Potomac out of here. Best case would be he retreats south, kind of down this way. I don't know if he will. He may just retreat across the river to Winchester. If he does that, I don't know if I'm going to have campaigning time left to bring him to battle again. If he retreats south, though, I hope I'm able to get one of these armies, soon to be corps, across here and retake Winchester again for the Union. So that's kind of the outlook. I notice that because of all the marching he's done under scouting stance, that the Army of the Ohio is ready for a perk. I think I'm going to go with, I like skilled cartographers. It gives a little bit better intel and a little bit better movement speed. There's a number of different perks. This is a really good one. Ambulance Corps, which, you know, a lot of your wounded and missing casualties return to the Army after a battle over time. And Ambulance Corps speeds that process up. So this is a really good perk to have. This is one I like to put on. For armies like Lions and McClellan's, this engineering perk is really good because it speeds up the construction of depots, telegraphs, and forts. Which depots and telegraphs usually build fairly quickly enough anyway, but it's helpful with those longer building forts. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of these, but flying column and skilled cartographer and ambulance corps tend to be the ones that I use the most for the frontline kind of fighting forces like this one. But then I also like to use this engineering one a lot with some of the smaller auxiliary but independent armies as well. So I'm going to give them cartographers. And then if he gets when he gets another perk, probably go with the ambulance corps. And you can get these at the army level too. Like later on, when these three corps, they'll whatever perks they have up to that point, they will keep those. But then there will be another entity, an army headquarters, above all of them, and that's a really good one to use. That's the one that I like to use that ambulance perk on. All right, enough of that. I've been talking for 20 minutes and still are paused. Just issue some orders here. I'm going to go ahead and yeah, and the other thing is, I had mentioned this before, I have transferred one division from McDowell's Corps to Hooker, and I chose the smallest one. And they're close to each other, but these brigades have not yet popped over. They'll be there in a day. So tomorrow, October 9th, they'll be ready to go, and I'm going to start moving them. In the meantime, we're just going to keep chasing Polk, I guess. Try the force march again. All right, well, Polk's going to keep going this way. So I guess Grant will too. It seems like at some point, deep in enemy territory with no supply and attrition, desertion, that there are circumstances under which a force should eventually just disintegrate. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that happen with a land army. I have seen it happen with fleets before. So, best case would be that Polk's command eventually disintegrates out of attrition and lack of supply. I don't know if we're close to that, or if it's not even in the cards. I have no idea. The other thing that's happening is because he's retreating, he's able to move at night. Grant waits till, Grant camps at night. That doesn't help either. I think I was using this Riverine squadron to kind of maintain visibility, trying to find Polk earlier. I think that usefulness has been outlived. I'm just going to tell him to come back down. Okay, Hooker has those forces now. Going to switch McDowell and Hooker to aggressive stance. Going to go ahead and leave Patterson doing what he's doing to complete these forts, and just to bump up his numbers a little bit, I did recruit for him another infantry brigade, so he's got the full 3 divisions of 3 brigades each. And I recruited a little bit more artillery for him too. And that's going to take a little while for those troops to get to him. Alright. I'm going to have these guys come up and push on Longstreet. I hope all those unit routed messages are Confederate and not mine. I think they are. Yeah, he pushed over to Winchester. Ah, Polk is coming down. Actually, cancel that. Just tell them to come all the way down to Cumberland. Army of the Ohio may somehow get involved with pushing the Confederates out of Winchester. Polk is at Cumberland. He's not capturing it. I think that may be due to readiness. Just like he blew through Pittsburgh and didn't have any effect there either. Oh, got the Army of the Shenandoah and Okay, we got all three of these here. It's tempting. Really? Okay. All right, there's almost 50,000 troops here. It's 48,000 estimated. Got 26,000 with Grant. 48,000 with Hooker. If I can get all three of these forces combined into one battle, we're looking pretty good. But Grant is coming from a different direction. Strasburg says Confederacy, however, it's showing blue, not red. So basically from here you can go in four directions. You can cross the Potomac into Maryland. You can head west into West Virginia. Head south up the Shenandoah towards Stanton. Or eventually, if these weren't here, cross back over toward Manassas. How best to box him in a way that doesn't leave one of my corps vulnerable to getting ganged up on and not supported. I feel like if I move Grant down close enough to support Hooker and McClellan, he'll be close enough that Longstreet and Jackson, last we knew, could hit him first. I also don't like the idea of tying the Army of the Ohio up. I'd like to get them back over to their intended theater. Okay. I'm going to move Patterson up this way just to force Polk back. He will probably come back over here and combine again. Then I'll have Patterson kind of come over here to cover the approach toward Frederick. Pull Hooker back, have him block this route, and then place McDowell right around this area where if the Confederates come and attack either way, McDowell is within supporting range. I think that's what I'm going to do. And Polk just comes right down the river. Where he is besieging Fort Washington. With a very low chance of success. And now he's kind of immobilized in that siege. Okay, if I just let this siege continue, we will win. Polk will have to retreat. Ostensibly toward the south. Or I can just have Patterson pitch into him now, hopefully cause some more casualties than what's going to happen in the siege. I'm going to pull Hooker back to this side of the river. And I'm going to pull McDowell back to right around here. Just going to leave Grant there for a few days, see how that develops. Just going to try to hopefully wipe Polk out here. Remove him as an ongoing irritant. $7,000 men, 25 guns, confident, outstanding, outstanding. It's kind of hard to see how he can be outstanding, but it pretty much always says that. We are on the, I mean, it's the siege of Fort Washington, but there's only so many tactical maps. We're on the Manassas map again. And this is the one objective. We are attacking, so Polk is going to try to defend right in this area. That's our best route to get there. Don't believe he's got any reinforcements coming. Well, there is only one. Really is only one road to get down in here, and that's to come down here past Sedley Mill, Sedley Church. And we can deploy up as close as this. So I think the thing to do is just deploy right through here, come down this road, right at Groveton, which is where we should find them. And hopefully tear them up enough before they can retreat. Go ahead and deploy forces. I'll probably cut this bit out of the video. Okay, not a whole lot of maneuver. It's just going to be kind of a straight ahead sort of a thing. The three divisions are lined up here. I'm just going to come straight down here toward Groveton, which is where the Confederates should be. I would imagine that they will they may have some breastworks or something, but I would imagine that their line would be kind of along this creek. That's defensive terrain, or possibly along these fences. Keim and Cadwallader, I don't know how that's pronounced. Everybody's going to come down the road through this semi-open area, and the 3rd Division, which is Sanford, his 3rd Brigade, which I recruited for this army, is not yet with the army. So he's just got 2 brigades, but they're going to kind of come down through this open area on our left in what I think will be the Confederate right. Okay. And our 1 battery, under the command of Doubleday's actually in command of the artillery division, but that division only has the 1 battery in it. All right, let's get somewhere around in here is probably where we'll make contact. Anytime you feel like moving, Sanford, come on. There we go. There are Confederate forces here. We just saw a battery. The McDowell's army, the Army of Northeastern Virginia, they've done pretty much all the fighting up till now. This is the first combat for these units. But I think that's true for Polk's few troops as well. And there's nothing like Hall's rifles, had very, very few of those. But most of these, not all, but most of these brigades do have some form of older rifle. I think there's some Mississippi rifles in here somewhere. There's a few Springfields. There's some rebored muskets, which aren't that great, but at least they have a longer range than a regular musket. Okay, let's go ahead and get these guys into line. Yeah, these guys have Mississippi rifles, which are quite good. They're pretty accurate. I think they have a 500-yard range. It may be the longest ranged rifle. Slow rate of fire, though. Even slower than other rifle muskets. Going to space him out a little bit before I put him into line. Still waiting for orders to get from Patterson over to Sanford to put these guys in a line. There they go. I'm going to move Patterson over just a little bit this way. As far as I know, the Fort Washington garrison is not a factor in this field battle. I don't think. Yeah. Nope, just these guys. And have Keim kind of advance up into this area. Don't want to leave Sanford hanging out here. Yeah, Stone's Brigade's got old model 1817 rifles. Poor accuracy, slow rate of fire, but they do reach out 400 yards, so it's better than mixed muskets. And Butterfield's guys actually have plains rifles, which aren't bad. Very good accuracy, 400 yards. They would just suck in melee with knives instead of bayonets. And eventually I want that one battery right up in here. I think I can move them there now. Right about there ought to work. And a little bit, nope, a little bit further forward than that. There we go. Move called Caddy. You are henceforth Caddy. I'm gonna move Caddy up to right about here. Leave him in column. He'll tire less in the woods in column than he will in line. Ooh, they're back here behind Groveton. Looks like maybe they're just bugging out entirely. Let's go ahead and unlimber the artillery. Times throw out skirmishers. Move up a little bit. Sanford, move up to this next fence. Get the 1st Division into line. Battery's firing. What we can do there. He does have a few more guns than I do. Looks like Polk has 2 batteries. Big these brigades are. 500, 1400, 1500. Ours are more like, well, ours aren't all that bigger. They're still suffering the effects of all those expired enlistments. They're averaging like around 1,500 apiece. Waiting for the 1st Division to get in position over here. Left a little gap. Want to try to make sure that our 1 battery's line of sight isn't obstructed. I think what I'm going to try to do is come up here, man up along this fence line. We'll have 1st Division over here, kind of near these woods on this slope. And once we take the objective, that may provoke the Confederates into attacking us, which I think I would prefer. we've got much higher morale, probably due to our overwhelming numbers. I say overwhelming. Well, it's over 2 to 1. Okay. Now the 1st Division come down this way, put pressure on the Confederate left, like so. Second Division come down here in the center. I think that's pretty good right there. Sanford can come here, right there in the fence row. This battery is a little bit right about here. Keep Patterson up here. Get these skirmishers up here and start trying to go after that battery. Okay, that battery is gone. That 1st Division advance. Confederate left. Just have the 1st Division continue to advance. Sanford come across as well. May get kind of hung up in those creeks there. General advance right through the position. What I meant, anyway. Yeah, there we go. Cause enough casualties for a major victory or to cause a disintegration. But I believe an army cannot. I think that they're in retreat mode. They can't go into enemy territory. If they're in enemy, like Polk was earlier up in Pennsylvania, they got to go somewhere. But as close as he is to Confederate Virginia, I think he's pretty much going to be, I hope he's going to be forced to go south. And doesn't do something wacky like go back up the river to Frederick or Culpeper or something like that. Not Culpeper, Cumberland. Keep moving. Pretty good battle for all of these green troops for their first combat. Get that out of the way. Thought it was their first combat. Maybe because of the retreat, it's already cleared that particular debuff. The battle is kind of over. Actually, no. Earlier, this army was involved in that kind of field siege, trench warfare against Longstreet, which was lifted, and the actual fighting was done by, and the tactical battle was done by McDowell's Corps. But this force had been involved in the trench fighting and were listed as reinforcements if that battle had gone longer. So that probably counted as their first battle. Didn't think about that. So last chance for a few gratuitous casualties here if they can get some shots on this 3rd Division. didn't do too much to that other battery either. Okay, Willie lost 1,200 infantry and 10 guns. 1,300 casualties total. We took less than 200. No. Patterson picked up some fame there. That's good. Polk retreating. Victory. Total casualties 12,000. Only 171 killed though, so most of those men will return to service. Some will, in any case. We lost 28 killed, so even with our light losses, some of these will come back as well. Morale's still good. All right. This message always says we have captured X number rifles. That doesn't mean they're actually rifles. There's probably a lot of smoothbore mixed muskets in there as well. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm just going to run time just a little bit to see which direction Polk now goes. I'm just curious to see what happens there. Well, he is going on the river, but at least he's going south. Off you go, Polk. Except now he's coming back up toward, really. Ooh. Longstreet and Jackson are on the move. Okay. Well, that will do for this episode. I was going to just kind of go on through, without much fighting expected, was going to go on through the winter and kind of catch back up with the episodes in the early spring or late winter and kind of catch everybody up on new forces or what have you. But I think we'll at least need to do an episode and see kind of what happens with these two forces moving. Don't know what they're up to. I'm going to just let it go a little bit longer. I am going to force march Patterson back over here to make sure he is within reinforcement range if Longstreet and Jackson decide to come across the river and engage Hooker. They are headed across. Interesting. And they're bringing about 45,000 men, because they've got some cav against we've got about 50,000, so it's pretty evenly matched. They're attacking us. So here, right at the tail end of autumn, I think we're about to have what could be the biggest battle of the war so far. Now, we do have a bigger force, but McDowell and Patterson are 16 and 18 hours away. So meanwhile, Longstreet and Jackson are together. So initially we're going to be outnumbered. And Hooker is going to have to hold the line until hopefully the next day when Patterson and McDowell come up. So we will see if that happens. But that will have to wait until the next episode. Thank you very much for watching.